His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, beyond just the generation aspect, also intends modernizing and upgrading the interconnected transmission system, which is run by the Ghana Grid Company. Ghanaians will recall that the NDC started this upgrade around 2015 thereabouts, where our 161 kV our 161 kV lines were upgraded to 330 kV lines. We also ensured that we completed all the loops within the transmission system. Ghana, through Gridco, has its transmission systems in loops. We have the eastern loop, the western loop, the northern loop, and what have you. And the NDC ensured that these loops were all upgraded. And the purposes for this upgrade was because we needed to reduce the losses within the transmission setup. Indeed, at the time the NDC was leaving government, the losses, particularly the technical losses associated with transmission in Ghana, was less than 4%. And this is exactly what His Excellency the President intends going after when he comes back into government. He also intends building a number of bulk supply points. And we all know that the more bulk supply points that you have, the more flexibility you give to your transmission network, and the more opportunities you give your system to reduce its losses. And therefore, he intends introducing or injecting a lot of capital to modernize these two systems. But the Gridco also has a responsibility as the grid supervisor and oversight. They play an oversight role in terms of power being dispatched to the bulk distributors or the bulk consumers for that matter, and we're talking about ECG. And one of the things they are supposed to do is to dispatch power in an economic basis, which simply means that they dispatch power based on the cheapest first. So assuming that all generating plants declare availability, or they say they are available to generate power, it is the responsibility of Gridco to ensure that they dispatch the cheapest first. And the whole idea is to make electricity services, and for that matter power, cheaper to the eventual consumer like you and I. The NDC will help Gridco to improve on this particular role, but also to introduce the electricity wholesale market, where power generating plants and companies for that matter will compete to sell power. And anytime, and you know that's basic principle in economics, anytime there's competition between players in the market, it drives down prices. And so Gridco will be giving the capacity in terms of human resource training and the necessary technology injection to ensure that they operationalize the electricity wholesale market that has eluded Ghana for some time now. Now to the distribution end. Any keen observer of the power subsector will tell you that the distribution end of our three functional zones is the weakest link of that value chain. This is because Gridco, or ECG for that matter, unfortunately are unable to always account for the power they purchase to be able to sell to you and I. Indeed, as we speak now, ECG's losses, as at the last check, and this was just about a week ago, was 30.63%. In simple terms, what it simply means is that if ECG were to buy power of 100 Ghana cedis worth, they cannot account for 30.63 cedis. And so this is creating a problem for ECG's ability to pay the other players along the value chain. That was why, under His Excellency John Mahama's tenure, he worked with the Americans to introduce the Millennium Challenge Corporations Initiative that came in the form of Compact 2. This was an initiative that was to leverage private sector capital and private sector expertise to inject efficiency and transparency in the work of our distribution companies, i.e. NEDCO and ECG. But we all do know what happened. Because of greed, because of self-gain, because of corruption, Ghana had to lose an amount of $190 million because Americans decided to withdraw that grant due to a very simple procurement process that eventually led to some levels of corruption, which His Excellency in a way has indicated that he will investigate when he comes to power. That being said, His Excellency intends introducing the private sector capital again and private sector expertise in the running of ECG, particularly in the commercial end. We intend introducing boundary meters in various operational areas to ensure the managers of those operational areas are accountable for the power that they consume. We intend ensuring that private sector, whilst creating jobs for our teeming youth, can also play a role in the distribution aspect of our power sector. But a greater part of the challenge that we will have to deal with is the crippling debt that has been occasioned because ECG is unable to produce or account for the power they consume. As we speak today, the debt situation in the energy sector, particularly in the power sector subsector, is huge. ECG is unable to honor the PPA agreements, that's the power purchase agreements they have with the independent power producers. And therefore, power that has been sold to ECG and invoiced, this power unfortunately is not paid for. And at our last count, we realized that the total amount of indebtedness just to the independent power producers is about $1.3 billion. Indeed, our conservative estimation has been that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama would need not less than $2 billion just to flush the pipeline and to give the power subsector a semblance of some financial viability and health. So His Excellency John Dramani Mahama indicates that when he comes into power, as part of his efforts, he would, using the cash waterfall mechanism, ensuring that the ESLA fund is used for its purposes, and also re-engaging our bilateral partners, we would have an opportunity to ensure that one, we retard this indebtedness that is hanging on the power sector subsector, and also inject efficiency into the power sector through ECG, which is the weakest link in this in the whole power subsector operations. So in short, His Excellency the President has indicated that one, he will provide a generation that is sufficient for domestic use and for export. And whilst doing that, ensure that we abide by the global targets of sustainability. He's also indicated that he will ensure that our transmission network is robust and fit for purpose, and that he will inject capital to ensure that at least they serve as the basis for which we can wheel power from Ghana into our neighboring countries. And last but not the least, he will resolve the long-standing challenge that we've always had with the power sector, which is the distribution end. Inject efficiency, both the introduction of new technologies, leveraging on private sector capital and expertise, and ensuring that in terms of the human capital, we have the right people to run those utilities. And finally, to handle the issue of the debt, stop the hemorrhage, and ensure that the books of these utilities are made healthier once again for the sector to run in a more efficient, in a more transparent, in a more accountable manner, such that at the end of the day, his 24-hour economic initiative that he intends using to drive industrialization is realized during his tenure. Thank you very much.